morning, all. Welcome to our CEO Roundtable here at Telecom Exchange London, our inaugural event, co-located, of course, with DCD Converged Europe. And I'd like to welcome our audience, and of course, welcome our viewers on RCR Wireless TV and JSA TV. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited here today. We have a phenomenal panel. And talking about a topic that's on the minds of many here tonight. We're honored to have Mr. Eric Contag, directly to my left. He's the president and COO of GlobeNet. Greg Kubin is in the middle. He is the project manager for infrastructure solutions for Hibernia Networks. And to my far left, we have Richard Petrie, of CTO of Lynx. So our topic today is network IT-isation, shaping the carrier future with NFV, open source, and SDN technologies, moving beyond the traditional carrier offerings. So we're talking here about the phenomenon of network IT-isation, as the phrase might be, bringing the NFV and open source SDN technologies to the network. And as new technologies continue to evolve, we have this open network virtualization strategies reshaping the telecom carrier ecosystem, something we love to talk about a lot at Telecom Exchange. And what are the new opportunities? What are the challenges? What can we predict for 2016? These are the questions that will be on the table today. Now, this is a round table, so whenever anyone in the audience has a question, we'd love to hear from you. For sure, the whole point of this is to give you this C-level access to the great carriers and internet exchanges here today with us. The ongoing shift to cloud services and mobile internet technologies is driving service providers and the suppliers to improve their efficiency and agility. And so our focus here is to explore how network virtualization can advance the carrier business model, enabling them to create network differentiated propositions for the provisioning of cloud networking, larger network as a service offerings, and cloud infrastructure services. All right, so for our purposes, shall we begin perhaps by defining what we're talking about with SDN? So software-defined networking is an architecture purporting to be dynamic, manageable, cost-effective, and adaptable, seeking to be suitable for the high bandwidth, dynamic nature of today's applications. So SDN architectures decouple network control and forwarding functions, enabling network control to become directly programmable and the underlying infrastructure to be abstracted from applications and network services. And then for network function virtualization, today's conversation, we can define it as a network architecture concept that uses the technology of IT virtualization to virtualize entire classes of network node functions into building blocks that may connect, that may chain together, or create communications services. So with all those definitions aside, let's get right to it. And first and foremost, and we'll start with Greg, how does your company, Hibernia Networks, prepare for or are currently engaging in these new or other carrier offerings?
Sure. So, I think to start off with, there's a lot of move to IT cloud in the business, and of course under every IT cloud there's actually, there's a real network sitting there, and this network we're certainly seeing a lot of price pressure on the cost of bandwidth. So the price of bandwidth is dramatically going down, right. But yet we're seeing huge demand. So the growth of demand is continuing. Just in the transatlantic corridor alone, we're seeing 40% year-on-year growth, which means we've got a bit of a challenge there in that we've got to deliver far more, but we cannot allow our operational costs to continue to rise in line with delivering that increased bandwidth. So we've got to look at ways of managing cost, right. Managing efficiency, and looking at how we can really streamline all of the processes. And I think that's very much where, for us as a carrier, SDN will fit. It will help us achieve far better efficiencies and far better economies. And that's very much where Hibernia is in the process. We're looking at our processes, we're looking at how we can kind of almost revolutionize the way in which we do business by moving things far more into automation, far more into new models and new ways of working to deliver these services. It's not just about SDN is about the whole SDN ecosystem. It's not just about throwing out some overflow switches with a central controller. You've got to look at the whole end-to-end flow of an order right the way through the system, right the way through the operational support side as well. I think where we have some advantages being a relatively small carrier is that we can be more agile. And so, the large carriers with these enormous system stacks are going to struggle somewhat because they have such big changes to make. And I think this is where some of the small carriers will probably leapfrog some of the large carriers in the deployment of SDN.
Right, yeah. And for sure, the Hibernian Networks reach is very complementary with GlobeNet's reach. I think together you guys kind of encompass the globe, right? So Eric, are you seeing the same things from South America's standpoint?
Yes, just to add a little bit of color to what Greg was saying, I mean, we all own and operate also a subsea network. Actually, both of our companies were sister companies way back when, the 360 days. And we have somewhat of an advantage that I like to really take, look at every time we deploy something in Latin America. And that is that from a technology adoption curve, we're, say, 2 or 3 years behind what happens, let's say, in the US, what happens in Europe. And so we can see the evolution of technology. And then typically what we like to do is we like to tropicalize it. So how do we adapt it to perhaps a market that is not so advanced? But basically the same principles that Greg was describing are the ones that let's say, that we're looking at. So you're looking at efficiencies, you're looking at how to do things better, how to make it easier for customers. People are starting to ask for bandwidth on demand. Where it gets complicated is if we have a very sophisticated customer, let's say, that is used to buying advanced services between, let's say, the US and Europe, and the same type of service is not available in Latin America. The networks are not quite there yet. So we take on a slight different approach. First is we watch. We try to gauge the market, see what's going on. But then on the other side is we have to deal very clearly with our local providers in each one of the countries who themselves are in a different evolutionary phase. We try to push them. We did something similar to this years ago when GlobeNet became the first international subsea provider in our area to offer carrier Ethernet services. So we got certified, and then we went to the access providers in the countries and backhaul providers, and we pushed them to also have a common standard product. And then that way, when the network's interconnected, there's things that we could do because we were based on a standard that before we couldn't. And we believe that that this is the same type of trend and the same type of strategy that we're going to adopt in our area at the right time.
And Richard, from London's internet peering fabric operator perspective,
yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
we as far as preparing, we have a slightly different business model, obviously, to GlobeNet and Hibernia,
Sure.
but very similar stories. It's about cost management, agility. We're not having to change to deliver new products, but we are having to change to deliver more capacity to the membership. So Links's network is very much a service provider to service providers and content providers, connecting everybody together. I would say we've probably already been looking at SDN for a number of years. We've launched internally solutions that are SDN-like. As they've matured, they've sort of gone towards that. And I think our preparation is all about processes, making sure that the company is fit. The talent and the skills that we're bringing into the company over the next few years, and then just making sure that we invest in partners, proof of concept, lab testing, going through that, and making sure that actually the benefits that we want to get out is what our customers, our members want to realise. And
what do you see as driving these new offerings, Richard?
Well, it's about efficiencies and cost control from the Links's point of view mainly. The internet keeps growing, as everyone I'm sure everyone's aware. Demand keeps growing. In London itself, we connect across 10 different data centres, a seamless network. It's almost like a cloud exchange in itself. It connects over 15 terabits of capacity across London. And what we see is demand, and we need to do more with less, from staff and cost. and automation and the centralised approach that SDN brings is something that we feel over the next 2-3 years will give us those efficiencies.
And as the company that just brought us the World Cup, what do you see as drivers?
No, they're all very similar, and I think it's interesting depending on who you talk to, right? So we're approached by some of the world's largest carriers, and they all want things like self-provisioning. They want to be able to go in and make decisions on when they want service. They want bandwidth on demand. They want things like, hey, today I need a service into one area, and then tomorrow I may have to switch to another area. So they want to see a little bit more of that, let's say, that agility.
Right.
But it's actually very complicated behind it. The easier to make it, let's say, to the end user, the harder it is on the back end. At least that's the way that we look at things. And if you look again at our area in itself, right, implementing those type of services for a large carrier that wants to buy in bulk, sometimes works. But it's not only about the technology allowing a customer to get, let's say, bandwidth on demand or two self-provision services. You have to be tied in to the back-end OSSs and BSSs to do it. So for example, if you look at a 10 gig wave across Atlantic that has a price of X, if you look at the same type of 10 gig wave into São Paulo, it's about 10 times X, right? If you look at it into Venezuela, it's even higher. If you look at it into Colombia, so there's a price differential per market. In some destinations, the backhaul in country is more expensive than the actual international link. And at the end of the day, what the customer wants is they don't care. They just want to say, hey, I want to go from A to Z. Here's my Z location. Here's my A location. So technically speaking, you can do it. We were actually, a couple weeks ago, I was participating in a demonstration that people were doing using SDN technologies and how they were setting up a network. And it was a live network in the United States and across multiple cities. The reality is that behind all that technology, you need to have infrastructure, right? It has to exist, right? So you need to provision 100 gig waves, 10 gig waves. You need to provision a whole mesh network. And then if you have the excess bandwidth, right, then you put the software on top of that, and then there's things that you can do.
Right.
But building out these networks is very, very expensive, and it takes a long time, right? So it all starts with a lot of upfront planning, right? Capacity planning is going to be critical. And that doesn't happen after the fact. That happens way before. On a subsea network, it could take you between a year and a half to upgrade a network, in particular one that touches multiple countries, right? If you don't have good capacity planning, you may find yourself in a situation where you're really running out of capacity. Then it doesn't matter what that software layer looks like, because the capacity is just not going to be there, right?
We were talking a lot about this last night over dinner, actually, the terminology infrastructure and what it means to different layers of our ecosystem, and how critical it is that the carriers are coming to the table with that capacity connection.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so it's saying that we are getting to the age of the customer, where the customer is making all these demands on the network. And to allow this agility and flexibility, you've got to pre-provision all of this. You can't just say, come along, request a service online and it magically be there.
Right.
That infrastructure's got to exist. The wavelength plan's got to be laid out. Everything's got to be there to start with before they can start leveraging the use of the network. So it's about planning. It's about preparation. It's about getting everything in place up front. And that's a tough thing to do for any carrier.
Right. And from a peering perspective and the telecom ecosystem, how do you see these offerings shifting the way you're doing business, Richard?
Well, I think it's already been mentioned, the self-service, the self-provisioning, insight into the network, monitoring, all of these things. Once you put your systems in place, once you develop your BSS and OSS system, you can then enable visibility into your network, and you can enable our customers access into the tools so they can self-help. And I think from a Links's point of view, our ethos is around enabling, giving back to the customer and the member who invest in the network, and that's part of our story. Is when we develop these tools, it makes us more efficient, but then we also give those tools to the customer to benefit them.
Right.
Yeah. I think it goes further than that as well, is that it's not just the carrier to the customer, but it's also getting to the stage where it's going to be carrier to carrier.
sure.
We're going to start leveraging each other's networks. We do that nowadays with NNIs. Well, now the next stage is probably that we're going to start looking at how we can leverage each other's SDN networks and start almost confederating the SDN story across different platforms and different carriers.